We are live.
All right, this is Literary Roadhouse. One short story once a week. I'm Rammy.
I'm Anais.
I'm Gerald.
And I'm Maya.
And before we move further, I just want to let everyone know that I started reading The Heart Goes Last over the weekend, and I'm hooked. It's breezy prose, right to the heart of the plot, right from go. I have nothing but praise so far, but also a few questions. So I hope those will be answered by the time I finish. If you haven't picked up a copy yet of The Heart Goes Last by Margaret Atwood, get on that soon, because we're launching a second podcast on January 1st, 2016, the Literary Roadhouse Book Club. The book club will meet once a month, and our first book is The Heart Goes Last by Margaret Atwood. Look, I'm showing it off for like the 40 people who watch us.
Woohoo!
Most people listen, yeah.
I'm curious how big the type is in your big.
Yeah, my large print. It's pretty big.
Wow.
I mean,
Oh yeah, that is pretty
Yeah.
big.
I love it.
Ocular brilliance. That's amazing.
Mhm.
And before we get started, I should probably let everybody know that sometimes we get pretty potty mouthed. I don't foresee us having that problem this podcast, but just in case, check iTunes and the website for this week's rating.
Yeah, you never know. It's good to always give the warning. All right, so if you haven't read The Nightingale and The Rose by Oscar Wilde, you should pause the podcast if you don't want it to be don't want the story to be spoiled. Read the story and come back. All right, so this story, it begins with a boy who's upset, and he's upset because there's this girl who said that she would dance with him if he brought her red roses. However, he can't find any red roses anywhere in his garden, so this anthropomorphic nightingale sees him crying and feels bad, so she goes around from tree to tree asking for a red rose, but none of them have any except one tree, who tells the nightingale that if she wants a red rose, she has to sing with her breast against a thorn so that her blood can color the rose red, basically killing herself in the process. So she agrees because she believes in this love between the boy and this girl. And the next day, the boy gets the rose and runs over to the girl and hands it to her. It's a beautiful red rose, but she frowns and she refuses it because she says that it doesn't match her dress. Plus, she has jewels which everyone knows are more precious and valuable than a rose. So after that, the boy is like fed up with love and he's like, this is impractical anyway, like I don't know what I was doing, and he tosses the rose to the ground and goes back home and picks up a book and starts to read and study metaphysics of all things.
You women.
You know, I really enjoy when Remy does the summary. There's something about his very droll delivery and very thinly veiled snark that makes my soul happy, like a nightingale. Okay, let's start with the top level because, you know, that's how we start every single one of these. How did everybody feel about the story when they first read it?
When I first read it, I didn't like it because it's a sad story, and I felt really down, and then I thought, no, I'm not supposed to feel that. I'm supposed to look at the story as a story. So then I felt better. So yeah, it was a pretty good story.
How about you, Remy?
Oh, I liked it. Yeah, I would, like I said, I wouldn't recommend something that I don't like, so I thought it was
You're not
decent.
supposed to necessarily know whether or not you like it when you submit a story. We submit stuff at random all the time, Remy.
Okay. Everyone can have their own process. I don't want to feel like I'm wasting people's time.
Oh, I love having my time wasted. I learn just as much from stories I hate than from stories I like. That's so funny. I love this story. It actually surprised me because it was very much in the very simple, it was written very simply, almost like a parable, but there was a lot of depth to it that I really enjoyed. I love this story to the point where I started instantly imagining Nightingale and Rose tattoos.
Wow.
Yes, I'm a dork.
Wow.
I was like, wow, that would just be so awesome whenever I do my literary sleep. So yes, I obviously love this story.
Okay, great. I get to be the podcast grump this episode. I'm ready.
Do
Because
it.
yeah, there's things that it's like I'll allow it because of the time, but put it this way, all the characters are ridiculous except for Green Lizard. Green Lizard is my homeboy. I love him. This Green Lizard is the only one who's like, this is ridiculous.
Because Green Lizard's had his heart broken before, so he knows.
The story behind the story.
Oh, great. That's funny. That is really, really funny. So why don't we start with what particularly we liked about the story? Gerald?
Um, like you said, I liked its simplicity. It wasn't a tremendous intellectual stretch to understand what the story was about. It was I tell you what I wrote. My summary was women are selfish and materialistic, and love is a disappointment and a waste of time. There you go. That's the summary.
You know what? That is the story of my life. Why don't I add that to my tattoo?
I'll email it to you later. So yeah, I did. I think just the overall sadness and just what a waste of life and how pathetic, and so it sort of annoyed me in a way, but it was well written because it did annoy me pretty well.
How about you, Rammy?
I liked it because for me it reminded me of a story called The Giving Tree. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but that's another story where you have this, in this instance it's a tree and it's taking on this very motherly role with a boy, and it's basically giving all of herself to this tree as he grows into an adult, and sacrifices to make the boy happy, which I felt was happening here too. And I think the Nightingale, yeah, I think it is representative maybe of like a mother or a caretaker or something like that.
Anais, I'm going to ask you to stretch. Stretch your mind. Open your heart to the Nightingale. What did you like about the story?
No, there are some things I like. I have like in the margins of my notes plus signs and minus signs. So the minus signs might outweigh the pluses, but the pluses are the visuals were really nice. And even if I find the whole, sadistic Rosebush asking a nightingale to commit suicide thing a little ridiculous, on its face, that magical element, though, is really pretty. It's really nice. The moon with sort of like this rose coming to life, the mist and the color being drawn in from the vein. Like, the imagery was beautiful. The choices, once you get past the kind of like the things that I find just silly, are nice, though, on their face.
I would say I agree with you. There were points when I was reading it where I definitely felt poetry's influence, which I always enjoy in reading. It's something that I need to get back to writing poetry because I love reading short stories and fiction where you can obviously tell the writer has a love of the language, and that's something that I really enjoyed. I enjoyed this, the emotions it evoked in me, and on its face at first I kind of felt like it was ridiculous too, but as the story went on, there was one particular point where the young man was saying, where the nightingale was trying to sing its instructions, was singing its sacrifice to the young man, and the young man just scoffs at it pretty much and says, stupid nightingale doesn't know anything, they don't know the pain of love or whatever it was he said. I can't remember off the top of my head because it's on my computer and I'm staring at my computer. But there was something in that instantly struck me, that it wasn't that he was saying he had all this love and that he was open to love, but really he wasn't, because humanity is kind of coarse and unable to love.
And about that piece right there, I was like, how come the nightingale heard his crying but can't hear him, like giving him like a cynical music review of his song? Like, well, how come the nightingale didn't hear that? It's right
I
there.
don't know. Maybe he muttered it. Maybe he said it in his head. Maybe she was in such romantic ecstasy that she didn't see it, like so many people that are in love do. But I felt like in the story, the nightingale was the only one that really expressed and experienced love, and the humans weren't so good at it.
Yeah.
And that's what I liked about it.
Is there a gender thing here where Maya liked it and she calls the nightingale a she, and Anais hated it and called the nightingale a he? So,
Are you saying there's
stupid
subconscious
nightingale.
man-hating going on, Gerald?
Oh, in the story, though,
Okay, I'm
in the story,
bisexual,
it's
so that
mentioned
doesn't
that it's a
count. I
she.
got gripes with both sides of the fence. But you know, this is one of those stories where I feel like there's a lot of layers to it. You know, I'm curious how you guys saw the themes of the story.
People's respect of nature, I feel, is another one that you could insert there.
Respect of nature.
How
Yeah,
about you,
because
Gerald?
all the boy wanted was just the rose, the end product. You know, he didn't realize what had to go into it. He probably just walked over the dead nightingale lying in the grass. And then, even though he said, you know, it's the most beautiful rose he saw, he kind of just dismissed it as soon as the girl said she didn't want it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that makes total sense because the only reason why he wanted it was because he wanted the girl. And then he looks at it and he says, well, that's useless, which we do that all the time. If something doesn't serve us, then it's quote unquote useless. And, you know,
Well,
I
so
think
those,
there's a theme there.
yeah, and those two things that you brought up kind of took me to some like corollary themes or corollary messages that I liked actually. So this is back on the positives. Another one being when the student says to the girl, you are very ungrateful. There was a nice moment of dramatic irony there because as the reader, we know he's being very ungrateful of everything that was just done for him. And yes, the student doesn't know that, but he also isn't really looking. He isn't really listening. He doesn't want to know that anyway. And the other thing that you just said, Maya, which was, you know, we discard things that don't serve us. There was also that thing about serving because there's like this kind of element of human exceptionalism that is being turned on its head a little bit. Like even this ridiculous bird says, what is the heart of a bird compared to the heart of a man when he or she is contemplating suicide? It's like even the animal kingdom is buying into and the oak tree's there like, yeah, bird, you have to finish suicide before daybreak, like cheering on this, you know.
Yeah, that was odd.
Yeah, this is oak trees. Like, I'm gonna miss you, but like, don't
It's
mess it
like
up, you know.
cheering it on. Push harder,
Yeah,
push harder.
push harder,
Get
push
to your
harder, die
heart.
right now. Yeah.
So just
but
that was
it's like,
odd. Okay.
yeah, all in service to the people.
Well, for me, I think one of the things that I found positive about the story was in the bird's sacrifice and in the bird was happy. The bird was so happy to sacrifice for love, right? Regardless of the outcome, because love is quote unquote selfless. When you love, doesn't necessarily say that you have to expect to be loved back. Loving is its own reward. I know, every cliche just popped out of my mouth all at once, en masse. But that's really what the bird is exemplifying in the bird's actions. So even though man doesn't recognize the sacrifice, even though man throws the sacrifice away, the bird has had that happiness because she sacrificed for love. And so when she says, what is the heart of a bird versus the heart of man, that made me really sad because that to me speaks of the idea that man can feel that level of love. And for many people, I don't think they can. I think we're a little on the jaded side nowadays. To be that selfless with no expectation of return, I don't think most humans would do that. And reading that, that's what made me sad. That romantic ideal, I think, can be very beautiful, even if a little stupid, and often we see it as folly in modern day. I do see that level of romantic love to be quite lovely. Too much Victorian poetry, huh, Gerald?
Yeah, just a little. In my reading, post-reading the story, I found a quote. I don't know where it was, but it said some quote is, "Love is a temporary madness," and I think, yeah, that's pretty much it.
You know what? My psychology professor said that. I was taking neuropsychology, and he was going into the psyche of the brain during love. And yeah, it's temporary psychosis on a chemical level, essentially, too. But then again, so is having a newborn. So.
Yeah.
and I think I'm more inclined to agree with the story saying love is a temporary madness, because I know I'm like probably overstating the importance of the green lizard here, but the
No,
green
you
lizard.
can never do
You
that.
were
I know.
just hung up on that lizard,
I
aren't
am.
you?
Because the lizard's like the only one who's like, this is all ridiculous. And I feel like on some level, at least I want to believe this is Oscar Wilde sort of, it's like a little bit of self-awareness, like a little bit of like, this is all a little crazy, both love itself and the fact that all of this is happening. And I appreciated that self-awareness, because without it, I would have been like, oh my God. But but also, I think the bird's suicide is also temporary madness, because the bird doesn't come with absolute zero expectation. She goes to the student and she thinks, she's like, okay, I'm gonna do this, bro, but listen, you need to like do true love and love her forever. Like she like has this list or he that she wants, and the student isn't even listening, and she does it anyway. Like, it's kind of crazy, this on a whim suicide for this student.
But she doesn't know. She's dead. In her mind, like, for eternity, she thinks the student has gone off and loved
But
this
how's that not
girl.
crazy?
I think the Nightingale, and by the way, in the beginning, I was trying to decide whether it's a boy or girl, or male or female, but in the story at one point, they described the Nightingale as she, just to put it out there. But I think maybe, just like similar to last week's story, maybe the Nightingale got so caught up in the idea and the story of love and pretending like it was this magical thing and wanting it to work out, that really it doesn't matter whether it was going to or not. It was just that feeling of getting caught up in it and wanting to believe in it.
Yeah, and I think that feeling right there was so perfectly exemplified in the Nightingale. That feeling of absolute possibility, no realism at all. You first meet the guy, he's amazing, his poop doesn't stink, he's like perfect, he's gonna be a multimillionaire, and he's never gonna age. And you're looking at him, you're like, he's perfect. None of that's true, but in that moment, all you can see are all the possibilities and all the wonderful things. And then 6 months later, you realize, he's not so great.
Oh dear.
I don't know if I mentioned
Gerald,
this.
you do the same thing. Guys have the same thing.
There's actually a psychological term for this feeling. It's called limerence.
Yes. Yes. And it's insanity. And it works on both genders.
Exactly. When you like always want to spend time with the person, when you'd be willing to like skip school or work or what have you.
What's interesting is it lasts about a year, and if you look traditionally, the courting cycle was about a year before the parents put their foot down and said it's time to get married.
Is it a year? No, I think
it lasts about a year.
Well, I think it depends on the person, but I would have guessed much shorter than that. I don't know.
I think that's just the amount of just absolute love and possibility typically lasts about a year. It has to do with our mating cycle. I think in modern day that's gotten crunched down a little bit just because we no longer court. We get way too overly involved. But in the olden days where you just dated once or twice a week, it lasted about a year.
Yeah, and I guess like your exposure to the other person too, the amount of, like if you're only gonna see them once or twice a week versus
and
like
a lot of people move in
forms.
before that, and then you know that their socks are on the floor and their toothpaste is in the sink. Whereas when you're having to go through mom and pop, you don't see that yet.
You paint a great picture, Maya.
Am I jaded just a little bit, Gerald? You know what's funny? As jaded as I am, I'm probably the most romantic person here as far as perfectly willing to suspend disbelief. And that's why I'm single, because I know if I'm not, I'm totally going to find somebody and not leave.
That's not a bad thing.
Yeah, it is. So, let's move on. Now, Annie's had some problems with the story. I'm really interested in hearing what it was you guys had issues with. I think Gerald had some issues too, but his were mostly focused on how the story made him feel because he likes to feel happy.
Yeah. Well, I have a I don't like waste. I don't like wasting time. I don't like wasting anything. And this poor little bird, it was just a waste because and I accept the things that you said about, it was doing it for love of the boy, and what he thought was the love of the boy for the girl, but I just thought it was just, I don't know, what a waste of time. It was. I can't get past that. That's the problem. I really can't get past it.
Oh, you're such a soft heart. That's so sweet.
Maybe.
Oh, don't cry. Sorry. For those of you listening to the podcast, poor Gerald just had to wipe his face.
I'm fine.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was funny. Low-hanging fruit. How about you, Anais? What was it that turned you off of the story?
Yeah, I'll sit back here.
We'll sit back here like grumps. So
Gerald,
tell us what's wrong with
You
it.
may be whispering, but you're whispering into a microphone. So.
And she can amplify it.
I'm the sound editor, Gerald.
Do you turn stuff up just to hear our grumblings, to hear what we're saying when we're really
Sometimes I
quiet?
do.
Oh,
Well,
that's
it
funny.
comes through. Yeah, sometimes or I'll keep it in the clip because it's funny. But yeah, so okay, so it's not as if the themes that it's exploring are themes that aren't worth exploring. They've been explored for millennia. It's more like you're giving me characters that I cannot sympathize with and a premise that is so ridiculous that it's like the lesson that I'm supposed to draw from it, it's like this is not applicable to real life because who does this? No one. Like there's just this sort of feeling of like how does this apply? What guy is just running around in a garden being like, oh my god, this girl with the rose? There's just a piece of it that's just
No,
like
but there are guys running around saying, oh my god, I got to get a better job, or oh my god, I need a better car.
It's so different, Like I feel like if there was a girl who was like, oh yeah, you can only dance with me if you get me a rose, I think most guys would be like, really? Like there'd be this kind of, like they'd just be like, hi princess, which she is,
Yeah, she's not a very nice girl.
No, she's not nice. Everyone
You
is
don't
like,
even have more buckles on your shoes.
yeah, everyone's ridiculous except for the green lizard. Even the butterfly is like, what's going on? Does she like drift after a sunbeam? I guess she's a butterfly, whatever.
I'm with Maya here, though. I think it definitely is applicable to real life, but I think two things that, for sure, but two things you can't do with the story is that, first of all, you can't take it literally, and you can't...
No?
Is this Rammy saying this?
Yes.
Did somebody replace him?
I can't take the talking rosebush sadist literally, guys.
No, because I mean, replace take the concept, replace Rose with anything else.
I just
like
was
Maya
wondering
was
if
saying.
somebody replaced you given your previous podcast episodes.
No, I hear you, Rammy. I hear you. It's just there just comes a point where it's just like I understand like the point of.
And the second thing. Yeah, the second thing is you can't, I don't think this is a story to really, overanalyze and, this isn't realistic or this wouldn't happen and things like that. It's just, taking these themes of, human emotion and what that says about, the human condition or about love and life and loss and things of that nature.
Rammy, you're my man.
Thank you. But another thing that I thought was very interesting was how it demonstrated, I think you, Maya, and Gerald also said before, and I think Anais, you mentioned it too, about how love kind of clouds your judgment or alters your thinking, which is in the very beginning, he's when he's madly in love and experiencing this emotion, he's like, I've read all that wise men have written, and all the secrets of philosophy are mine. Yet for want of a red rose is my life made wretched, right? But then at the end, after he's disenchanted and rejected, he goes, what a silly thing love is, and then he goes back to thinking, it's best to be practical because this is very impractical, and he goes back to his philosophy and studying metaphysics or whatnot.
I wonder, Anais, as Rammy says that, I'm thinking about how Western society has viewed love and how that has changed over the last couple hundred years. Because 100, 200 years ago, the idea of romantic love, that was an ideal. Giving up everything for somebody, this was very much romanticized in poetry, the arts, the whole nine yards. And now we are much more realistic. We're much more concrete about how we view love. We look at that ideal as silly, as impractical, and we do things like sit down with the person we're going to marry and talk about what's going to happen if we split up. Whereas in previous generations, that wasn't necessarily the case. Even though you couldn't live up to that romantic ideal was very much the ideal. Get what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I think for me, the issue that I have with this is the issue that I've had with the other parables that we've read and these type of stories in general. It's to illustrate a point, and it's not that I disagree with the point, it's that the caricature to get there is such a
Has to
big
go
caricature.
so far.
Right, that it's just like, I don't believe motives, and I feel like it's oversimplifying something that is really nuanced. So that's why I think I kind of like reject it, where it's just like you're making these broad strokes on things to the point where it's like, I just don't believe it. Nothing is actually like that.
Yeah. I think for me, I don't mind a parable or a fairy tale that has to like go to the level of almost absurdity to make its point, as long as it's multi-layered. I don't like single-layered stories. I don't like a story like last week where we read it or what's the week before? I can't remember now. You read it and whatever you read was pretty much all that was there. I don't like that. I think what gets me past the fact that this story is in many ways simplistic and a parable is the fact that there are so many layers that I can extrapolate out of it as far as meaning. Like, I can look at the story and I can apply it to young love. I can look at the story and I can apply it to man's inability to be at one with their feelings, or like Rammy said, I can look at the story and look at it through the lens of how we relate to nature. I can look at this story in how our relationship to love has changed over time as a society. There's lots of different ways that I can look at the story, and that's what gets me past how absurd the story is. And I think I find the same thing with some of the magical realism we've read. The magical realism that we've read that I've loved the most have all had multiple layers. Whereas the magical realism that we've read where it's been like one main theme, it really hasn't stuck with me, and isn't something like, if you were to ask me which stories we read, I would only be able to remember the ones that had multiple layers because they made me think.
Yeah, but in those stories that we liked that had element of magical realism, the magical element that's being introduced is being introduced to highlight a nuanced set of human behavior. Like, it's not the magic that bothers me, it's what are you doing by bringing that in.
Yeah, and for me, I feel like this was highlighting a nuance, but that's just because we look at things totally differently. I think one of the reasons why I like having you on the podcast is because we are often on opposite sides of the same thing, or we're agreeing, but for completely different reasons. I think it's really interesting to hear the reasons why that turns you off. How about you, Gerald?
Wait, I just wanted to mention something, just so that you don't think that I was deceiving you, because last week you asked me if this was another parable, and I said no. So
he lied.
No, listen. So a parable, like both of them sort of try to give like some sort of moral lesson, right? But a parable, I think, primarily employs human characters, whereas a fable uses animals or inanimate objects to illustrate it. So I would say this is more of a fable.
Hair. Did he really just do that on air?
I just did. Yep, I went there.
I will say, as I read this through the second time, because I tried to give it another chance the second time. As I read it the second time, I got to the end and I thought to myself, if Rammy submits another story with talking animals.
No, the other one wasn't talking animals. The other one was about the necklace. That was all humans.
Yeah.
Rammy's getting all
Um,
defensive.
Just a little bit.
Oh,
Oh gosh.
It's not even his story.
That was really funny. I don't think I've ever heard of anybody splitting the parable fable there.
Wow.
That's just awesome.
Yeah, Wikipedia does it.
Oh, great, great. Okay, Gerald, what do you have to say? You looked like you had something to say, and then we got all sidetracked.
I don't know. I can't remember.
You can't remember?
I don't. I'm just looking at my notes here. Yeah, I just agreeing with Maya. I think it was the lizard, the butterfly, and the daisy all said how very ridiculous, which is.
And by the way, I hated the lizard. The lizard is like grumpy grandpa. It's like, nothing ever works. What are you talking about, love? You're just going to end up getting divorced in 5 years.
The lizard is my spirit animal.
Which is realistic, too, because I think in most families you have someone like that.
He totally is like that uncle.
Yeah, exactly.
When you said that, Rammy, it made me think of in The Lion King, when Zazu said that, there's one in every family, 2 in mine.
Totally. Oh, wow. Okie dokie. So is there anything else you guys would like to hit on before we go ahead and rate this story?
Yeah, actually, there was something else that I felt I didn't dislike it, but it was just something that made me think of, yeah, that's how you know this story is so old. The personification of abstract themes, love, power, sadness sets on the brow. Like that's something we don't really see as much in modern writing, or sometimes I'll see it in modern writing, but it's from like authors that are just starting out. You don't really see it in like very mature authors that have a lot of published works. I may just be missing them. And I don't know, it was very sort of poetic, and I didn't dislike it, but there was something about it that made me just feel like, with that, I mean, obviously it's Oscar Wilde, so I know it's old, but it just felt like I was looking back in time just by reading those lines.
Yeah, I think a lot of writers don't approach these topics very much anymore. I wish they would. I'm sure it's one of those cyclical things where it'll come back into vogue, but I think, it's hard to write about love, like, what? And B, as a society, I think many of us are so cynical it wouldn't sell very well.
Yeah, I think it's an indication of how Oscar Wilde himself felt about love and how it how it felt to him and his experiences, and he had a downer on love, traditional love anyway, and that I thought this is old Oscar Wilde's writing here. It is so and unlike Maya, I didn't see multiple layers. I only saw the top layer. I only saw, the sort of infatuation, the just whole waste of time thing. Oh, I'm going back again. Sorry.
I love it when Gerald gets like this.
I have no enthusiasm for this story at all.
You know what? And like, I was just talking to somebody I work with, one of my clients, and about the fact that my romance series just went kaput and had to turn into romance fiction because my tragedy roots started showing. And I'm like, maybe I'm just too jaded. Maybe I'm just not happy enough to write romance. And I'm realizing maybe I'm just unhappy enough to enjoy Oscar Wilde.
Maybe.
Because I'm like, oh wow, yeah, man, I'm right there with you. Okie dokie. Let's go ahead and rate this puppy. Who wants to go first?
I got since
you go
I
first. It's your story.
Okay. I'm giving it a 6. And
What?
let me.
What?
I didn't.
I'm not giving it
Wait.
a 6.
I didn't
Wow.
go in. Wait, and I think that, like, as usual, like, I remember Maya, you said usually with the discussion, it improves your view of the story, but, like, a couple of times now and then it lowers it. But I was originally going in with a 5, but I think Anais brought up, like, points that she was against, but for me, it didn't really stick. So I don't have a reason really to dock it. So that's my rationale.
Well, I love the story. I'm giving it a very solid 5. I can't go higher than 5 just because it's not a story I would reread. It was a story where I read it once and I had this amazing experience, and I would tell other people to read it, but I probably wouldn't reread it again.
And of course we know Rammy's only giving it a 6 because he knows Maya's going to really Anais is going to kill it, so he's trying to adjust the marks up a little bit.
Do you really think that's what he's doing? I wouldn't put it past him. You think he's
No.
got like
No.
He's
abacus
not
next
like
to him?
Yeah. So but my thing's been up and down all over the place. I it's kind of hard to, because I quite like the writing, but I don't like, how simple it is. I shut up, Gerald. 4 for me.
Okay, so originally I was going to give it a 2.5 because I do like the visuals, even though we didn't dwell on that as much. And something about the fact that it's old makes me want to give it a few free passes. Like, this is also, like, of the time. Like, okay, like that does come into play, But the Green Lizard, talking about it, made me realize how great he is. So it bumps it up to a 3 because the Green Lizard is like, if I see it as a moment of self-awareness of Oscar Wilde being like, I know this is silly, then I like it more.
Suddenly I have the urge to have a T-shirt with a green lizard with Anais's face.
No, that's not.
Or just a green lizard.
As a green
Or just
lizard.
a green lizard.
Green Lizard with his tail up in the air. Because he knows.
Yep, just walking.
He knows everything.
Notice, so he was walking past the boy's head on the ground. Like, the boy was, like, sobbing on the ground.
Like, this is
he's just
ridiculous.
walking by.
How ridiculous is that boy?
It's like my mother after my first breakup. Oh, just get up. Okie dokie. So, oh wow, I did just say that on air. Sorry. So I'm going to submit for next week's story Hong Sung-won's short story Shower.
Okay.
I'm resubmitting Happy Endings by Margaret Atwood because we will read Margaret Atwood, damn it.
Okay.
I'm so excited.
And I'm submitting Cities I've Never Lived In by Sarah Micah.
Okay, Rammy, how does this game work?
Oh, no. I have this awful feeling.
Okay. Good question. No, so since... What? No, let's not do this again, please. Like, come on. So since I guess this week and last week's story revolved around the themes of love, I thought it would be interesting to play a game of Who Said This. So I enjoyed creating this game, so I'm going to tell you a quote having to do with love, and you just have to tell me who said it. So I'll give you, this time, to make it easier, I'm giving you 2 choices, because I understand this is more difficult because no one really memorizes love quotes, unfortunately, these days. But so is that cool?
That actually sounds really awesome.
All right. So Anais, we'll start with you since you went last time I did this. So you'll go up first. Okay. So the quote is, "The best thing to hold on to in life is each other." So who said this? Audrey Hepburn or Henry David Thoreau?
I want to say Hepburn.
Correct.
Thoreau was very cynical. I'm like,
that sounded much more like Hepburn.
Yeah, Hepburn.
Okay. All right, Gerald, the next one. I really like this quote, and I'm probably going to use it on a person. "I want to do with you what spring does with cherry trees." Who said this? Pablo Neruda or William Winter?
Neruda?
Correct. All right.
Yeah.
I think the 2 choices was a good idea. All right, Maya.
Mm-hmm.
"Love is a canvas furnished by nature and embroidered by imagination." Who said it? Was it Khalil Gibran or Voltaire?
Voltaire? I'm thinking
Yes.
of the other one.
Wow.
Wow, I got it right.
Oh.
Everyone got theirs right. All right, this will be interesting. All right, Anais, back to you. Come live in my heart and pay no rent. Was it? Yeah, it's a good one. Was it Walt Whitman or Samuel Lover?
Lover?
Yes. His last name was actually Lover.
And Whitman didn't seem like him, but you never know with him.
Gerald, I am in love, and my God, it's the greatest thing that can happen to a man. Was it D.H. Lawrence or our very own Oscar Wilde?
It must be D.H. Lawrence.
Yes, why must it be?
Because Oscar Wilde wasn't that lucky in love. He would have been like, God dang
Oh
it.
yeah, okay.
Again.
Oh, that's true. Nice deduction. All right, Maya. You are my heart, my life, my one and only thought. Was it Sir Arthur Conan Doyle or William Shakespeare?
Shakespeare.
Nope. Doyle.
I finally got one.
All right. Yeah. So Anais, back to you. A flower cannot blossom without sunshine, and man cannot live without love. Was it E.E. Cummings or Max Mueller?
Cummings?
Mueller. All right. Gerald, this is for the win. I never saw so sweet a face as I stood before. My heart has left its dwelling place and can return no more.
Oh,
So nice. Yeah.
I've always loved that.
Was it, all right, so which John said this? Was it John Milton or John Clare?
Milton.
Oh no, it's John Clare. All right, so Maya, you know you're in love when you can't fall asleep because reality is finally better than your dream. Was it Dr. Seuss or Lao Tzu?
Lao Tzu.
No, it was Dr. Seuss.
Really? Oh, wow. Didn't sound like
Yeah.
Dr. Seuss to me.
Yeah, I know. I was surprised with that one too. Maybe it's just something he said on the side and not like in one of his
Yeah.
stories.
It doesn't sound nearly silly enough.
Yeah. So, all right, we have a tie. So luckily I have a tiebreaker between Anais and Gerald.
Dun,
All right.
dun, 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 dun,
So
dun.
I'm going to, thanks for the music. I'm going to give you a poem, all right, a small one, and you have to fill in the blank. Okay?
Mad Libs for poetry. This is awesome,
Yeah,
Rammy.
no, but it's just, thank you, but it's just the last word, and it rhymes, so that should give you a clue. In order to determine who goes first, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 10. Anais, what is it?
8,
No.
6.
Gerald?
6.
Nope.
3.
Yes. All right, Anais. Then seek not, sweet, the if and why. I love you now until I die. For I must love because I live. And life in me is what you blank. By
Give.
Christopher Brennan. Give,
Give.
yes. Fantastic. All right, Gerald. I have another one for you. You guys are good at this. All right.
This
I
is
will
really
make
awesome.
All right, Gerald. I will make a palace fit for you and me, of green days in forest and blue days at blank by Robert Louis Stevenson.
C.
Yes. Oh my gosh. All right. So you both got
Do you
the
have any more
All right, I have
tiebreakers?
another one. Yeah. All right. So this one We'll give you 3 choices, so it's a little harder. So Anais, we'll start with you. Wait, I guess, how do we determine who starts? Or Gerald, since Anais started? No, I don't know. How do we do that?
I say Gerald because Anais was the first one, and she was the first one in the tiebreaker.
Okay, so Gerald, we'll start with you. Where there is love, there is no question. Who said this? Albert Einstein, Blaise Pascal, or Vincent van Gogh?
Van Gogh.
Nope. All right, Anais, can you do it?
I'm just gonna randomly guess Einstein.
Yay!
He sometimes said romantic stuff.
Yeah, he was a little bit of a romantic.
Yeah, he used to say some like wishy-washy things here and there.
All right.
Sweet.
So you win.
That was
What's
the most
story?
awesome game ever,
Yeah,
Remy.
No, last one. Oh, so I broke my record. Okay, great. I thought the last one I did was the best one.
Well, that was the funniest. This one's the best one. There's a
The
difference.
last one he did was also the first one.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm a little disappointed I won because I do want to read Atwood, but I also want to read Cities I've Never Lived In by Sarah Micah. So, read that. So you don't need to bring us a rose to hang out with us between episodes. Come over to the comments section at literaryroadhouse.com and chat us up with your thoughts on the story. If you do want to bring us something, forgo the rose and instead leave a review on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spreaker, then share this podcast with your friends. Until next time, read a good story.